The moment I stepped onto the stage, I scanned the crowd, clinging to the hope that someone, anyone, would be there. My name echoed through the auditorium. Cheers erupted. But the seat with my family's name remained empty. Not my mother, not my father, not even my brother, who swore he'd never miss it. That day, I didn't just graduate, I woke up. I realized I had been loyal to people who only loved the version of me that served them. And this story, it's not about revenge. It's about what happens when silence ends. And I finally speak the truth. The applause felt like it came from underwater, loud, distorted, distant. My heels clicked too sharply against the stage floor as I walked toward the podium. My graduation cap tugged slightly by the air conditioning. "Valedictorian Rachel Harper," the announcer said, and the room erupted in cheers. 1,000 strangers clapped for me, but all I could see was the one row of seats, 3 to be exact, labeled with reserved Harper family. All 3 were still empty. I scanned the auditorium again. Maybe they were late, maybe traffic, maybe Ethan had forgotten the building name again. Maybe Mom's back was acting up. Maybe Dad's phone had died. My eyes darted to the entrance for the 20th time. The doors didn't move. I smiled for the cameras, for my classmates, for the institution that had given me this honor. I had written a speech about resilience, about community, about carrying others with you on the climb to success. But as I looked out into the sea of unfamiliar faces, my mouth went dry. The words caught in my throat, not because I was nervous, but because I felt utterly alone. A professor offered a soft, encouraging nod from the side. I gave my speech anyway. I spoke clearly, calmly. I quoted Maya Angelou. I thanked the faculty. I even thanked my family by name. Ethan, Linda, Paul, my brother, my mother, my father. None of whom were there to hear it. After the ceremony, while classmates fell into hugs, tossed caps, and posed with proud parents, I stood off to the side, clutching my diploma like a child clutches a stuffed animal during a thunderstorm. My fingers hurt from gripping it too tightly. A photographer offered to take my picture. I smiled, just me, alone again. I pulled out my phone, half expecting missed calls or apologies. One notification. A photo from Ethan, a cheese board. Caption: "Mom wanted wine and spa today. Much needed reset." No text from Mom, no missed call. No emoji-filled excuse, just silence and a cheese board. I didn't cry. That would have felt like validating their absence. Instead, I walked out of the auditorium into the golden hour light and sat on a bench by myself. I uploaded a photo of me holding the diploma, smiling beneath my cap. I wrote, "Made it, with or without them." But even that caption felt too generous. The truth was, this wasn't the first time they'd missed something important. My first ballet recital at age 6? Car trouble. I performed anyway, my eyes never leaving the empty aisle seat where Mom promised she'd be. At 13, I fell off a bike and broke my arm. I called Ethan crying, but he was busy with the guys. I waited alone at urgent care until a neighbor picked me up. My 18th birthday? Mom forgot it completely. When she remembered the next day, she laughed and said, "That's what happens when you get old." When I was accepted into my dream university, Dad's only response was, "How much is that going to cost me?" Each time I forgave them, made excuses, lied to myself and to others. They're just busy. They mean well. At least I have family. I held on to this fantasy that one day they'd show up. That one day I'd matter enough. But now, this was that day, the day they promised would be different. and they still didn't come. I called Mom as I walked to my car. She answered on the second ring, her voice casual, distracted. "Hey, sweetie." "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. "I just finished the ceremony." "Oh, how was it?" Silence stretched between us, like a rubber band about to snap. I waited for her to say something more, anything more. "You didn't think of coming?" "Honey," she said, with a soft laugh that grated against my ear. "You're being dramatic. It's just a graduation." Just a graduation, just. As if 4 years of sleepless nights, part-time jobs, and emotional breakdowns could be wrapped up in a bow and labeled just. "I worked my ass off," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "You always do," she replied, missing the point entirely. "You'll have plenty more ceremonies. We'll make the next one." I ended the call before she could say anything else. There wouldn't be a next one, not like this. That night, I sat in my apartment in my cap and gown, staring at the selfie I'd posted earlier. Comments rolled in. "So proud of you. You did it. Where's the fam? Where's the fam?" I didn't reply, but the answer curled around my ribs like smoke. They never were. Not really, and maybe they were never planning to come. It started with a mishap. I wasn't supposed to see it. I was helping my Aunt Shelley set up her new phone. She wasn't tech-savvy, so I offered to transfer her contacts and sync her apps. That's when I saw it, an open group chat labeled Harper Core. The profile images, Mom, Dad, Ethan, Cousin Ava, Uncle Glenn, everyone except me. At first, I froze. Maybe it was a work group or something for a surprise party. Some optimistic part of me still wanted to believe I wasn't being excluded. But as I scrolled through the messages, that illusion shattered in seconds. "She'll make it about herself again," Ethan had typed the night before my graduation. "Let's skip the drama," Mom replied with a heart emoji. "She's obsessed with attention," added Ava. "We'll just send flowers or something later. Post it on Insta." No one objected. No one defended me. No one even hesitated. Just an echo chamber of shrugging indifference. I should have closed the app. I should have respected their privacy. But I kept scrolling, like watching your own eulogy before you're dead. "She acts like she's the only one who worked hard," Dad wrote. "We had to deal with her moods for 4 years. This is a break. That speech will be all about her pain. Just watch," someone said. "She loves a sob story." But what hurt the most wasn't what they said. It was how casual they were saying it. I wasn't a villain in their story. I wasn't even important enough to be one. I was background noise, a side note, the drama they muted to protect their curated peace. I left Aunt Shelley's house without a word. She didn't notice anything off because I had perfected my mask long ago. I'd worn it every holiday, every birthday, every time they told me to lighten up or not take things so personally. But this time, something cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quiet and final. Later that night, I laid in bed and did what I always did when the ache got loud. I scrolled. I fell into the vortex of social media like a sleepwalker. And that's when I saw it. A TikTok posted by my mother. Background music, some emotional piano track. Captions in soft cursive font, missing our girl on her big day, so proud, always in our hearts. It opened with a shot of my baby photo, then clips of old birthday parties, a ballet recital, my middle school art fair. My mother was crying on camera, real tears it seemed. Ethan hugged her. My father patted her back. There were candles, A banner that said, "We love you, Rach," a cake, hashtag family love, proud parents, distance but close. The video had 1.2 million views, comments flooded in. "You raised a queen. She must be so grateful. Real love doesn't need to be in person." They were being praised for their absence, rewarded for a lie. And the cruelest part? They were using pieces of my real life to do it. That baby photo, they had taken it from a scrapbook I made in high school. The recital video was one I didn't even know they still had. They repurposed my memories into a narrative that made them the victims of distance, not the authors of abandonment. I didn't comment, I didn't share, I just watched it on loop. 1,000 times I wanted to scream. Where were you when I was crying myself? To sleep at 17, when I skipped meals to pay rent, when I called and no one picked up? But instead, I looked into my own phone camera, the screen dimly reflecting my tired face, and I whispered, "Who do you love? Me or the version of me you invented for likes?" I turned off my phone. I sat in the silence, and for the first time, I didn't reach for distraction. I didn't scroll or call or cry. I just sat and listened to the sound of a woman deciding she'd had enough. I didn't know what I was looking for, just that something felt off. Like a drawer you've opened 1,000 times suddenly won't close properly. That subtle shift that tells you something inside doesn't belong. It started when I applied for a professional development grant through my university. Standard paperwork, standard process, until they flagged something strange. "We're showing outstanding debt under your name," the finance officer had said over the phone, gently, as if she were breaking bad news to a child. A federal student loan from a private cosigner program dated back 3 years, nearly $90,000. My stomach dropped. I'd never taken out a private loan. My scholarship had covered most of my tuition, and I had worked 2 jobs to cover the rest. I'd been meticulous, too meticulous, for something like this to slip by. I scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor the next morning. The office was sterile, all gray chairs and glass dividers, but the moment the advisor pulled up my file, the room might as well have caught fire. The loan was real. The borrower, Rachel Harper. The co-signer, Linda Harper. My mother. The signatures matched, or rather they looked close enough. Except something was wrong. The handwriting was a little too neat. The date on the document, when I was 19. The same week I'd signed a stack of college enrollment forms Mom had prepared for me at home. The advisor turned the screen toward me. "Do you recall signing this?" I stared at my own name, written in ink that didn't feel like mine. "No," I said quietly, "but that doesn't mean I didn't." Because back then I would have signed anything she put in front of me. Mom always made paperwork sound like a hassle she was saving me from. "Just sign here, sweetheart. I already read the boring stuff." And I always did. Grateful, trusting, like a fool. The advisor leaned forward. "If this loan was taken out fraudulently, you can pursue legal recourse, but it gets complicated when family is involved." Complicated. That was one word for it. I left the office with a printout of the loan details and a storm in my chest. At first, I thought about confronting Ethan, then Mom, but something in me said, wait, observe, collect, don't give them a warning. I opened a new email account, booked an appointment with a legal consultant, started backing up my phone, my bank records, every conversation I could remember. But it was when I returned to the finance office for loan verification that the real unraveling began. "We'll need to confirm your identity through a DNA match," the clerk said. "Just protocol, since the account was set up under family-based eligibility." "DNA test," I almost laughed. "Sure," I said, shrugging. "Swab away." I forgot about it the moment I left the building, until the envelope came in the mail. No match. No paternal relation found between Rachel Harper and Paul Harper. I read the sentence again, then again. The test had been verified through a government lab, triple-checked. There was no doubt. Paul Harper, the man who raised me, who scolded me, who once held my bike seat until I pedaled on my own, was not biologically my father. I stared at the letter, my body still, but my mind unraveling like yarn pulled too fast. Was this why I was always treated like an outsider? Why Mom snapped at me faster than Ethan? Why Dad never looked proud? Why family hugs always felt staged? And more than that, was this why Mom never looked afraid to hurt me? Because deep down, she knew I wasn't her husband's child. I dug through old files, photos, letters, any trace of a clue. I found nothing, no adoption papers, no medical records. Just the same Christmas cards, year after year, all smiling faces, hiding a lie older than me. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, the DNA results lying open beside me, my computer screen casting a pale glow across the room. "I am an outsider," I whispered aloud, then stopped. Or maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was the only one inside the truth, the only one who ever questioned why love felt so conditional, why silence was the family currency, why we're family always sounded more like a command than a comfort. I wasn't the outsider. I was the only one who'd stopped pretending. And that's when I realized I didn't sign a paper. I signed away my silence. I didn't want revenge, not in the beginning. I wanted silence to end. I wanted someone to say, yes, what happened to you was real. I didn't need applause. I needed acknowledgement. So I created a podcast. It started in my closet, using an old USB mic and a free audio editor. I titled it Dear Nobody and recorded the first episode in one take. My voice trembled at first, but grew steadier as I spoke. I was born into a family that smiled in public and cut deep in private. They said they loved me. Maybe they believed they did. But love shouldn't feel like something you earn by disappearing. I didn't use names. I didn't need to. The stories were distinct enough that anyone involved would recognize themselves, and vague enough that strangers could see their own families in the silhouettes. I uploaded it and went to bed, thinking maybe 10 people would listen. By morning, there were a few hundred downloads. By the end of the week, 10,000. By the second week, I had emails, dozens, then hundreds. Your voice is mine. You told my story. My mother said the same thing when I asked her to come to my recital. I cried reading them, not out of pain, but relief. For the first time, I wasn't alone in the fog. I released a new episode every Wednesday. I talked about birthdays skipped, medical emergencies brushed off, lies passed off as love. The episode titled The Empty Chair went viral. Clips of it were reposted on TikTok, stitched with videos of people sitting alone at weddings, graduations, hospitals. Then the episode Signed Without Reading dropped, where I spoke about being tricked into a financial debt and discovering the people who orchestrated it were the same ones who once tucked me into bed. That was the one that changed everything. One of Ethan's professors heard it. She had been helping him apply for graduate funding and recognized the details. loan dates, family structure, financial aid inconsistencies. She contacted the university's financial ethics board. I got the email 2 weeks later. An anonymous tip had triggered an investigation. Ethan's file was under review. I didn't feel victorious. I felt calm, like the world was finally tilting back into place. Then came the live stream. It was unexpected. A relative texted me the link. They're reading Grandma's will live on Facebook. Just watch. I did. The screen showed my parents, dressed in black, flanked by Ethan and Aunt Melanie. They sat in the family living room with a framed photo of Grandma behind them and a giant printed banner that read, "In loving memory." Mom dabbed at her eyes. We wanted to honor her wishes transparently. She wanted us to be united. She wanted peace. A lawyer appeared on screen. He cleared his throat and began to read the will. Everything sounded rehearsed, too polished. Rachel is to receive a token sum, it said. The bulk of the estate would go to Ethan and Aunt Melanie in recognition of their closeness and care. Comments flooded in. So classy. This is how families handle things. Bless you all. I opened the comment box. Question: did anyone tell Rachel her grandmother was even sick? The comment was buried quickly under dozens more, but I posted again. Follow-up: is the lawyer aware his assistant sent me a copy of the original will? The one where Rachel was primary beneficiary. That froze them. I could see Mom's smile falter. Dad shifted. Ethan looked at someone off camera. Then came the twist they truly didn't expect. The lawyer leaned forward. I've been made aware of these allegations. In light of recent evidence provided by Rachel Harper, including a video recording of a conversation between Linda Harper and myself, this livestream is now suspended. Legal review will follow. The screen went black. The video disappeared within minutes, but not before it was screen recorded by at least a dozen people. I hadn't just commented. I'd submitted documents to the estate's legal team the night before, along with a video taken by the lawyer's assistant, my old friend from college, who now worked at the same firm. In the video, Mom had offered her a little something extra if she could make sure Rachel didn't get confused about her place in the family. I didn't take their inheritance. I took their mask off. The internet did what it always does. It dug deep and moved fast. Within 48 hours of the livestream debacle, my inbox was flooded with links, screenshots, and messages from strangers who had followed my podcast. People were connecting dots I hadn't even noticed. Someone traced the scholarship fund Ethan applied for using my academic record. Someone else shared an old comment my mother made under a parenting forum. Raising a difficult daughter requires tough love. Then came the fallout. Ethan's university issued a formal statement. His enrollment was suspended, pending investigation into academic and financial misconduct. His scholarship was revoked. Mom and Dad released a Facebook video to clear the air. They sat side by side on their couch, visibly distraught. Mom's mascara ran. Dad looked 10 years older. We never wanted this to be public, Mom said, voice cracking. We're being painted as villains by our own daughter. But we were just trying to help her. We are the victims of a cruel campaign. Dad added, families fight. They say things, make mistakes, but airing them to the world, that's what hurts the most. It was theater. They played their roles perfectly. The comment section exploded with sympathy. I didn't respond. Instead, I posted one thing, a photo of me at graduation, standing alone, holding my diploma. Caption, This is the story I wrote for myself. It went viral within hours. Thousands commented, not just support, but stories. So many stories. My mother missed my wedding. This hit me. I stayed silent for years. You gave me a voice. But with every message, every cheer, I still felt nothing. Not empty, not satisfied, just numb. People called it victory, justice, closure, but all I felt was quiet. I sat on my floor one night, knees pulled to my chest, reading through old journals, words I wrote at 13, at 20, at 29, all versions of me who just wanted to be chosen, to be enough. I wondered if any amount of exposure or public reckoning could fill that hole. If justice delivered through screens and headlines could warm the cold parts inside me. I was winning on paper. But something still ached. I am winning, but am I happy? That's when the idea came. Not revenge, not drama, just clarity. I produced a special podcast episode, no title, no music, just silence for the first 30 seconds, then my voice, calm, slow, measured. This isn't for the internet. It's not for downloads or comments. It's for the girl I used to be. The one who waited by the door in her recital dress. The one who studied all night, hoping it would earn her a hug. The one who thought if she just gave enough, she'd finally be seen. I called it the eulogy they never gave. I wrote it like a funeral speech. Not for someone who had died, but for the version of me I was finally ready to bury. She was a good daughter, I said in the recording. She tried harder than anyone should ever have to try. She forgave faster than she should have. She clung to hope like it was a lifeline. She died waiting for love she already gave. I paused, let the silence linger. Then I added, and now she can rest. I released the episode at midnight. There was no marketing, no hashtags, no clips. But people found it anyway, and they listened. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. No one teaches you how to grieve a version of yourself that never got to live. The version that was never celebrated, never protected, never nurtured. But I had to. I had to say goodbye to her, so I could make room for someone new. A few days later, I visited a local botanical garden, alone. I found a quiet bench under a blooming magnolia tree, sat down and pulled out a small paper lantern. On it, I wrote, "Thank you for surviving, now let me live." I lit it and let it go. I didn't need a crowd. I didn't need applause. I just needed to release her. I moved to a city where no one knew my name. Correction, no one knew the name I used to carry. The one that came with expectations, guilt, and a reputation I never agreed to wear. In this new place, I chose something simple, clean, quiet. A name that didn't carry echoes. I didn't run, I rebuilt. My apartment was small, but it was mine. I painted the walls myself, grew plants that didn't require much, just light and water, kindness and space. A mirror of what I'd always needed. I started working at a local nonprofit that supported survivors of familial abuse. Most came in with tired eyes and folded arms, speaking in low tones as if they still feared being overheard by ghosts. I knew those ghosts well. I used to carry them like a second spine. I didn't talk much about my past at first, but eventually my story became a tool, not a wound. I led workshops, helped draft policies for trauma-informed education. And I wrote. The book took a year. I titled it Blood Isn't Always Family. It wasn't a memoir. It was a manual, a map, a love letter to the lost. It walked readers through signs of manipulation hidden in plain sight, through strategies to reclaim your name, your finances, your voice. It opened with a simple sentence. Love doesn't require you to disappear. When the book launched, I expected modest interest. Maybe some therapists would recommend it, but it exploded. Within weeks, it hit bestseller lists. Not because of marketing, because of word of mouth. Quiet, urgent whispers passed between friends, siblings, even strangers in waiting rooms. I received letters, hundreds, from women in their 60s who said, "I thought I was the only one." From teenagers hiding the book under their beds. From children, yes, children, who scribbled messages in shaky handwriting. My mom says I ruin everything, but your book says love doesn't sound like that, so maybe she's wrong. I kept every letter, stacked them in a box labeled proof, not of my pain, of my purpose, and yet the most unexpected moment came quietly on a rainy afternoon. A call from the local foster care liaison. A child, 8 years old, needed placement, short-term, emergency. She's quiet, the woman said, withdrawn, doesn't speak much, but she listens. I wasn't planning to foster, but something in me said yes. Maybe because I knew what silence meant. Maybe because I was finally ready to offer what I never had. The girl's name was Aria. She arrived with one bag, a chipped music box, and eyes too old for her age. She didn't speak for the first 3 days, just followed me around the apartment like a cautious shadow. On the 4th day, I found her in the living room holding a copy of my book. She had traced the cover with her finger and whispered, "This woman looks like she tells the truth." I nodded. She tries. Aria moved in slowly, like a cat testing a new home. I gave her space, no forced questions, just soft meals, warm blankets, and quiet reassurance. One night she asked, "Why do people who are supposed to love you hurt you?" I didn't have a perfect answer, so I said the only thing that felt honest. Because sometimes people don't know how to love without control, but that's not your fault. She nodded. That was enough. A few weeks later, her file arrived, the paperwork, the background. Her mother was incarcerated, her father unknown. Her temporary guardian, a woman whose name stopped me mid-breath, Melissa Crane. A name I recognized from my podcast's early days. A name tied to hate mail, online campaigns to discredit me, accusations that I was destroying real families. She had sent me a message once, saying I deserved nothing but abandonment. Now her daughter was in my home. Twist of fate? Maybe. Karma? Perhaps. But I didn't feel vindicated. I felt still. That night, as Aria curled beside me on the couch, I told her gently, "You're not here because of your mother. You're here because you deserve safety." She looked up at me. "Do you hate her?" I shook my head. "No, I don't hate broken people. I just don't let them break me anymore." She pressed her forehead against my arm. "I'm not broken," I smiled. "Exactly." We didn't talk much after that. We didn't need to. I didn't adopt Aria right away. That came later. After therapy, after stability, after she started humming again. But when I did, I told her the truth. "You're not the family I expected. You're the one I chose." At our small makeshift ceremony, just us and a few friends from the nonprofit, she wore a white dress and carried a bouquet of wildflowers. When the clerk asked if I'd like to say anything, I said this, "Aria, you are the legacy I want to leave. Not a story of pain, but of choice, of new roots." She squeezed my hand. In that moment, I didn't need applause. I didn't need a diploma, or a stage, or even an empty chair. I had her, and that was enough.